Sometimes a single sunrise can expose 30 years of buried truths, especially when you're no longer willing to be someone's doormat. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the little glowing numbers on my digital clock. 3:58 a.m. 2 minutes before the alarm I had secretly set on Terrence's phone would ring. 2 minutes before my son learned his mother had finally stopped being afraid of him. For 6 long months, I had cooked, cleaned, folded laundry, scrubbed floors, and served breakfast like a hotel maid, instead of a 71-year-old woman living on a $1,000 Social Security check in a small suburban town in Columbus, Ohio. I told myself it was temporary, just until Terrence and Tiffany got back on their feet after losing their apartment. But the truth was far uglier. They hadn't just gotten comfortable, they'd gotten entitled. Terrence wasn't the same boy I raised, the boy who once held my hand with tiny fingers and whispered he'd take care of me someday. No, the man sleeping in that bedroom now barked orders like a boss whose employee couldn't quit. And last night, when he told me, no, commanded me to wake up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast in bed for Tiffany, that was the moment something inside me snapped. So at 3:30 a.m., while the house slept under the cold Ohio night, I crept into their room, took his phone, set his alarm to 4 a.m., and placed a note beside it. Time to make coffee for your wife like a real husband. Then, I returned to my room, opened the old notebook I'd kept hidden in my dresser drawer, and reviewed the numbers, the truth of 20 years of motherhood written in ink. Money I had loaned him, money I had sacrificed, jewelry I had sold, mortgage payments I had carried alone, $75,000. Every cent spent saving a son who never learned gratitude. And now, he was about to wake up and discover everything. At 4 a.m. sharp, the silence shattered. Terrence's alarm blared through the hallway. I didn't move. I just listened. At first, came a confused groan. Then, footsteps stumbling. Then my son's voice, sharp, irritated, confused. Mom? Why the hell is my alarm ringing? Mom! I closed my eyes. Let him come. Let him ask. Let him finally see the mother he thought he owned wasn't his servant anymore. But Terrence wasn't the only one waking up to a surprise that morning, because the envelope waiting on the kitchen table held a truth that would blow the entire house apart. And it had my signature on it. Some debts aren't measured in dollars. They're measured in the years you let someone walk all over you. Terrence stormed out of his room like a man chased by thunder. His hair was sticking up, his t-shirt twisted, and his face red with irritation. The hardwood floors of my Ohio home echoed under his heavy steps as he stomped toward my bedroom. Mom, why'd you touch my phone? What's going on? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked past him, slowly, calmly, like a woman who had finally found her spine after years of bending. My heartbeat was steady, my hands didn't shake, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. Come to the kitchen, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. Terrence frowned, confused. Tiffany, awakened by the commotion, appeared at the end of the hallway wearing a silk robe she bought 2 weeks ago on my credit card. What's happening? She whispered. You're both going to want to sit down, I replied. They followed me into the kitchen where the only light came from the small lamp I kept on the counter. The envelope sat in the center of the table, thick with papers, my handwritten records of 20 years of sacrifice. Terrence's eyes narrowed. What's that? I pulled out a chair and sat. It's a bill, I said. He laughed, actually laughed. A bill. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I pushed the pages toward him. The laughter died instantly. Loan for vocational school, $20,000. Motorcycle loan, $2,500. Wedding contributions, $15,000. Emergency medical loans, $600. Monthly support before marriage, $3,500. House mortgage payments, $11,000. Random expenses you borrowed, $6,000. Food, utilities, and living expenses for the last 6 months, $4,400, and more. Total, $75,000. Terrence stared at the pages as if they were written in a language he'd never seen. Tiffany peered over his shoulder, covering her mouth with her hand. "You're joking, right?" he said breathlessly. "Mom, you wouldn't actually expect—" "I expect," I interrupted softly, "respect. And you stopped giving me that a long time ago." He pushed the papers away, his face twisting. "This is insane. You're my mother. You don't charge your own son." I leaned back in my chair. "And you don't treat your mother like a servant." For a moment, everything went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then Terrence slammed his palm on the table. "So what? You want us out? Is that what this is?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because the real surprise, the one they weren't prepared for, was still waiting. In a folder, by the fridge. Signed, stamped, final. When a mother finally reaches her breaking point, she doesn't raise her voice. She raises the consequences. Terrence stood frozen, the bill trembling in his hands. Tiffany clutched her robe tightly, her eyes darting between me and her husband like a child watching a storm form in the sky. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence, each second slicing through the tension like a knife. I stood slowly, walked toward the refrigerator, and opened the top drawer where I had kept the folder for the last 3 weeks. A sky blue folder with a single label: Housing, Final Decisions. I set it on the table and gently slid it toward Terrence. He didn't touch it. "What is this?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Open it," I said. He hesitated, then flipped it open, and the color drained from his face. Inside were official documents: a written 30-day notice to vacate, a signed rental termination agreement, a copy of state eviction laws, and at the very top, a letter I wrote by hand. Terrence and Tiffany, this home is no longer your permanent residence. You have 30 days to leave. Tiffany gasped. "You're evicting us? Your own family?" I looked at her calmly. "Family doesn't treat me like hired help." Terrence dropped the folder, pushing his chair back so hard it scraped the tile. "Mom, you can't do this. We have nowhere to go." "You have jobs now," I said. "A combined income of $600 a week. Enough to rent a small apartment, enough to live like adults." "That's not the point," he shouted. "We're not ready." I felt something rise inside me. Not anger, but clarity. You weren't ready to work. You weren't ready to save. You weren't ready to be responsible. But you were ready to order your 71-year-old mother to wake up at 5 a.m. to make French toast for your wife? Terrence's mouth opened, but no words came out. Tiffany stepped forward, crossing her arms. This isn't fair. We contribute. You buy hair dye on my credit card. Her face reddened instantly. Terrence tried again. Mom, please, we just need more time. You've had 6 months, I said gently. 6 months of my groceries, my utilities, my home, my peace. He shook his head, pacing like a trapped animal. You're choosing money over your own son? I sighed. It's not about money. It's about dignity. And I won't let you take mine anymore. Silence. Pure, heavy silence. Then Terrence whispered something I'll never forget. So you're really kicking us out? Like strangers? I swallowed hard. No, I'm kicking you out like adults who forgot how to respect the woman who raised them. But the confrontation was far from over, because when Terrence made one last desperate threat, he crossed a line that turned this quiet morning into a full-blown war. A son's anger can hurt, but a son's threat can destroy something inside a mother forever. Terrence stood in the center of my kitchen, fists clenched, jaw tight, eyes burning with the frustration of a child who had never been told no. Tiffany hovered behind him, arms wrapped around herself, pretending to be the victim while she silently encouraged his temper with every glare she threw my way. I thought the shouting was over. I thought the worst had passed. I was wrong. Terrence stepped closer, voice low, trembling with rage. If you kick us out, Mom, we'll have no choice but to tell everyone you abandoned us. Our friends, our family, they'll all think you're a cold, heartless old woman. He let the words hang in the air like poison. Tiffany added a whisper that sliced deeper than any scream. People already think you're difficult to live with. My breath froze. For a second, the room blurred. Not because I was scared, but because those were the exact same words Marcus once told me during an argument decades ago. Words I had buried long before Terrence even learned to walk. Terrence stepped closer until he was towering over me. You want that? He hissed. You want everyone knowing what kind of mother you really are? I lifted my chin. I've been a good mother, I said. A mother who gave everything she had. He snorted. You gave too much. That's the problem. You made me dependent on you. You made me believe you'd always take care of everything. I blinked. There it was. The truth hidden beneath his anger. Not hate, not entitlement, dependency, weakness, fear. And instead of facing it, he blamed me. But the part that broke me wasn't the blame. It was what he said next. If you expect us to leave, then you better be prepared to lose us forever. Because once we walk out that door, we're not coming back. Not for you, not for holidays, not for emergencies, not for anything. Behind him, Tiffany nodded. That's right. If you throw us out, we're done with you. My hands tightened on the edge of the table. For a moment, I felt something inside me collapse. And then something else rose from the ashes. Strength, peace, resolve. I looked them both in the eyes. Then I guess, I whispered, this house is about to be very quiet. Terrence froze. Tiffany's eyes widened. They expected tears. They expected begging. They expected me to fall apart. But they didn't understand something important. You can't threaten a woman who has already survived more pain than you can imagine. The room trembled with silent shock. I stood up, pulled a small key from my packet, placed it on the table. "What's that?" Terrence snapped. "The key to your future," I said. He didn't understand. Not yet. Terrence thought the key was symbolic until I revealed what it really unlocked, and his face drained of color as he realized the life he'd been living was about to disappear faster than he ever imagined.
Some keys open doors. Others reveal the lies people have been living in. Terrence stared at the small silver key on the kitchen table as if it were a ticking bomb. Tiffany leaned forward, squinting at it with suspicion, her blonde hair falling over her shoulder. "What is that supposed to be?" she scoffed. "A key," I said softly. "To the storage unit." Terrence frowned. "We don't have a storage unit." "No," I replied. "You don't, but I do." Confusion flickered across his face. I walked to the counter drawer and pulled out a narrow envelope, one I had placed there last night, right before setting his alarm. I handed it to him. Inside was a printed receipt with bold letters, "Storage Locker 17B, prepaid for 12 months. Tiffany's eyebrows shot up. "Why would you do that?" I inhaled slowly. "Because 6 months ago, when you two moved into my home, you promised it would be temporary. But when it became clear you had no intention of leaving, I started preparing." Terrence blinked. Preparing for what? For the day I'd finally say, "Enough." He looked down at the key again as reality slowly clicked into place. "I moved all your unused items, your boxes, your clothes, your gym equipment, the belongings cluttering my garage. They're all in that storage unit now." "What?" Terrence stepped forward, shocked replacing anger. "You moved our stuff without asking?" "I asked," I said quietly. "Every day for 6 months. You ignored me, so I took action." Tiffany crossed her arms, her lips tightening. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "I can," I said, cutting her off. And I did. Terrence ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, why? Why would you do all this?" My throat tightened. Because I knew this confrontation was coming, and I wasn't going to spend another year being treated like a live-in maid. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life feeling small in the house I built with Marcus, and I wasn't going to let you two take advantage of me anymore. Silence. Then I added the part that made Terrence's face pale. "You've already been removed from my utility accounts, the phone plan, the internet, the car insurance, everything I've been paying for while you contributed nothing." Tiffany's jaw dropped. "And I've spoken with a social worker and a legal housing counselor. Your 30-day notice is official. You can't challenge it, and you can't stay here." Terrence stared at me stunned. "Mom, you really planned all of this?" "I had to," I whispered, "because if I didn't protect myself, no one would." Tiffany suddenly snapped, losing her composure. "So what? You expect us to just leave with nothing?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "You have something," I said. "What?" "The chance to grow up." The kitchen fell painfully silent. Terrence's hands trembled as he held the key. He whispered, "Mom, please don't do this." But it was too late. Rehook? Because the moment Terrence begged me to reconsider, Tiffany made a comment that shattered any remaining hope of reconciliation and exposed the real reason they never planned to move out at all.
sometimes the truth doesn't come from the person you expect. It comes from the one who has been hiding it all along. Tiffany's blonde hair shimmered in the early morning light, but her eyes were cold. She stepped closer to the table, her arms crossed, and let out a bitter laugh. "You know, Terrence," she said, "Mom's really nice to keep all this a secret from everyone, but I was starting to get tired of pretending." Terrence's jaw dropped. "What are you talking about?" She leaned on the counter, tilting her head, and her voice dripped with satisfaction. "We've been living here rent-free for 6 months while working part-time jobs, right? Well, guess what? We could have moved into a better apartment months ago, but why leave a free home with food, laundry, and maid service? Mom's generosity became our luxury package." The words hit me like a slap. All the sacrifices, the nights I stayed awake worrying about them, the money I gave, the bills I covered, and the love I had poured into them, exploded. Terrence opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His face turned pale. Tiffany continued, ignoring him. "Every extra dollar we earned went to splurges, hair dye, nail appointments, new clothes, gifts for ourselves. We didn't need more time. We needed a free ride, and we got it." I felt my chest tighten. My hands trembled, but I kept my voice steady. "So you lied? All this time, you were lying?" Tiffany smiled, but it was smug, not kind. "You were too nice to notice, too loyal to question, and you thought Terrence was grateful, when really, he just saw you as the house staff." Terrence stumbled backward, looking at me, as if searching for some kind of protection, but there was none. "I raised you, Terrence," I said, my voice cracking, "through sickness, through poverty, through everything. And you allowed this woman to treat me like I was invisible? You forgot what it meant to respect your mother." Tiffany scoffed. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You gave him everything, and he still wouldn't leave the house if I didn't encourage him." I stared at her. My heart pounded. My body shook. But inside me, a calm, icy clarity had formed. "No," I said firmly. "Today ends. Today, you both learn that a mother's love is not a license to exploit." Terrence swallowed hard. "Mom, what are you going to do?" I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "What I should have done the day you moved in." They thought the shock was the eviction and the bill, but the real surprise was yet to come, and it would make both Terrence and Tiffany realize exactly how much they had taken for granted. Sometimes the smallest gestures can carry the heaviest consequences. Terrence and Tiffany stood frozen in the kitchen, staring at me as if I'd transformed into someone unrecognizable overnight. Their eyes darted from the folder on the table to the key in Terrence's trembling hands. But I wasn't done yet. I walked to the counter and brought over a small box. Inside were 2 envelopes, neatly labeled Terrence, Life Lessons. Tiffany, Reality Check. Terrence's eyes widened. "Mom, what's this?" I opened my envelope first. Inside were copies of every single check, loan, and payment I'd made for him over the last 20 years. Every vocational program, every motorcycle purchase, every emergency bill, meticulously totaled at $75,000. Each page had a note. "Remember this the next time you think I owe you nothing." Terrence stumbled back, turning pale. He couldn't even speak. I handed Tiffany her envelope. It contained a list of every frivolous expense she had added to my bills, from salon visits to personal indulgences, and the total, $6,400. Do you see? I asked, my voice calm, almost eerily soft. I continued, Terrence, this is your chance to start paying attention. Tiffany, this is your chance to stop thinking life owes you everything. You've been living in someone else's sacrifice, and today it ends. Terrence tried to speak, but I raised a finger. Not a word. Listen. I then slid a final piece of paper across the table. It was a budget and timeline for them to find an apartment, set up their bills, and begin taking responsibility for their lives. I had even included resources for job advancement, local food banks, and affordable housing programs in Columbus. This isn't punishment. This is your wake-up call. You've taken me for granted for decades, and it stops now. Consider this the first step towards being adults. Terrence's knees shook. He swallowed hard, realizing the magnitude of what I had prepared. Tiffany's hands trembled as she flipped through her own envelope. Finally, I added, and the French toast, coffee, and early breakfast you demanded, forget it. Today, you cook for yourselves. And the alarm you set for 5 a.m., it's still going to ring, but this time, it's your responsibility. They looked at each other. For the first time, silence was heavy, not with anger, but with understanding. Rehook. They had thought they had power over me, but by the time the sun rose over Columbus, Terrence and Tiffany would discover that the woman they tried to control had rewritten the rules of their lives, and their future depended entirely on how they responded.
Some mornings don't just bring sunlight, they bring clarity that changes everything. At 4 a.m., Terrence's alarm blared through the house like a trumpet announcing battle. He jolted awake, disoriented, his hand slamming the snooze button before remembering the note I had left. Time to make coffee for your wife like a real husband. He froze. His eyes scanned the kitchen and then the envelope on the table. Terrence had no idea what awaited him. I stayed in my room, watching quietly from the doorway. His footsteps were hesitant as he approached the table. Tiffany followed, still in her robe, clutching her hairbrush like it was armor. Terrence picked up the envelope first. His hands shook. He flipped it open, and his face turned ghostly pale. Every check, every loan, every dollar meticulously recorded, the truth laid bare. "What? Mom? How?" he stammered. I entered the kitchen, calm, steady. "You should have seen this coming, Terrence. You thought I was just going to be quiet and obedient forever." Tiffany whispered, This can't be real." "It is," I said softly. "It's real life, and real life has consequences." Terrence dropped the papers. "Mom, I didn't know you kept track of all this." "You should have known. You should have remembered every sacrifice, every time I chose you over myself, every dollar spent so you could survive and thrive." He swallowed hard, guilt washing over him. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his actions. Tiffany shifted uncomfortably. Her smugness was gone, replaced with unease. "Mom, we'll pay you back," Terrence said quietly. "I'll start immediately. I didn't realize." I shook my head. This isn't about the money anymore. It's about respect, accountability, and realizing that life doesn't revolve around your wants. He looked at Tiffany, who avoided his gaze. "And breakfast?" Terrence asked
hesitantly, his voice small. "You make it yourself. And from now on, everything in this house is earned, not demanded." Terrence opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he understood that the woman he had tried to manipulate was stronger, wiser, and unyielding. I watched as he hesitated at the stove, fumbling with coffee, realizing that the life he had taken for granted was no longer free. Rehook. As the first sip of coffee brewed in Terrence's trembling hands, both he and Tiffany would soon realize that this was more than a wake-up call. It was the start of a life lesson they couldn't ignore. Sometimes, the first step toward growth is the hardest to swallow, especially when it tastes like humility. Terrence stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee pot like it was a puzzle he'd never solved. Tiffany hovered next to him, arms crossed, glaring at the counter, unsure where to start. For 6 months, they had lived a life of convenience at my expense. Today, they would understand for the first time what it meant to earn it. "Do you remember how you told me to make French toast for Tiffany every morning?" I asked quietly, watching them struggle. "Today, you do it yourselves." Terrence flinched. I don't even know how." "You figure it out," I replied calmly, "just like you figured out every problem in your lives by relying on others." He fumbled with the bread and eggs. Tiffany muttered under her breath about how unfair it was, but I ignored them, sipping my tea in the living room, listening. Minutes turned to half an hour. Burnt toast, spilled milk, and unevenly scrambled eggs littered the counter. Terrence's hands shook, his face red from embarrassment. Tiffany dropped the coffee cup she tried to pour, staining the countertop. Neither of them spoke. The reality of their dependence was crashing down, louder than any argument or shouting match. Finally, Terrence turned to me, defeated. "Mom, I get it. I didn't realize how much I relied on you. I took everything for granted." I nodded. "And it's time to start changing that. Actions, not words. Understanding, not entitlement." Tiffany's eyes flickered with shame. She didn't say a word, but started wiping up the mess they had made, realizing her carefree attitude had consequences. I watched them both silently, a quiet satisfaction settling over me. For years, I had allowed their behavior to continue out of love and hope. Now they were facing the natural consequences of their choices. And for the first time, the house felt lighter. Not empty, just honest. Terrence took a deep breath. "Mom, thank you for this wake-up call. I don't want to live like that anymore." I smiled gently. "Then start showing it. Today." They thought the hardest part was making breakfast, but the lessons I had prepared for the coming weeks would push them further than they could ever imagine, shaping who they truly were meant to become. Sometimes the hardest lessons come when pride finally meets reality. The kitchen was quiet now, except for the sound of Terrence scrubbing the burnt remnants off the pan. Tiffany had started washing dishes silently, without complaint. Their faces reflected something I hadn't seen in months: genuine responsibility. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching them stumble through tasks that I had done for them for half a year. The small victories, the toast that didn't burn completely, the dishes stacked neatly, were already teaching them something more valuable than any lecture could: Terrence sighed. Mom, I never realized how much you did. All of it. Every single day. I nodded. You never asked, and you never cared to notice. Until now. Tiffany added, her voice soft. I feel terrible. I've been selfish. I'm sorry. I studied them both, my heart softening slightly, but I stayed firm. Apologies mean nothing unless your actions change. Today is not about saying sorry. Today is about showing it. They moved slowly, carefully, their movements deliberate. Terrence washed the pans, carefully wiping the counters, while Tiffany swept the floor. Each action was deliberate, calculated, and full of awareness. I handed Terrence a small notebook. Keep track of your expenses from now on. Track every dollar. You'll realize how easy it is to spend and how hard it is to earn. Terrence flipped it open nervously, glancing at me. You did this all for me? To teach me? I nodded. I've given you everything else. Now I'm giving you the one thing I hope matters more, the lesson of accountability. Tiffany glanced at Terrence, her eyes moist. We've been blind. We've taken everything from you, and it's been wrong. For the first time, the room felt like a home, not a battleground. They were learning, stumbling through humility, and slowly, painfully, understanding the value of self-reliance. I realized something then. Love isn't just giving. Sometimes love is letting go of control and forcing someone to face reality. Terrence looked up at me, a mixture of fear, regret, and determination in his eyes. Mom, I'll never take you for granted again. I promise. I smiled softly, letting him feel the weight of his own words. We'll see, I said. Actions speak louder than promises. They thought the morning would end with burnt toast and awkward apologies. But the journey to accountability was just beginning, and the coming days would test them harder than any confrontation could. Some truths can only hit hard when comfort has been stripped away. By mid-morning, Terrence and Tiffany had started to understand the full weight of their actions. The kitchen, once a place of convenience, had transformed into a classroom of responsibility. The burnt toast and spilled milk were replaced by careful preparation of breakfast. The frantic fumbling gave way to deliberate movements. Terrence looked up from the counter, his face pale and serious. Mom, I never realized how much you sacrificed. Every penny, every hour, every little thing, all for me. I nodded quietly, my heart heavy. You needed to see it yourself. I couldn't make you understand by telling you. You had to experience the absence of convenience to truly grasp it. Tiffany stood beside him, her usual confidence replaced with a hesitant humility. We've been blind, she admitted. 6 months of taking advantage, all because we thought you'd always provide. I studied both of them. Their arrogance had faded, replaced by something fragile but real, awareness. You're not just learning to cook or clean, I said. You're learning to value what's been done for you, to respect the sacrifices of others, to grow into adults who contribute rather than consume. Terrence's voice shook. I never realized how much you sacrificed. Every penny, every hour, every little thing, all for me. I nodded quietly, my heart heavy. You needed to see it yourself. I couldn't make you understand by telling you. You had to experience the absence of convenience to truly grasp it. Tiffany stood beside him, her usual confidence replaced with a hesitant humility. We've been blind, she admitted. 6 months of taking advantage, all because we thought you'd always provide. I studied both of them. Their arrogance had faded, replaced by something fragile but real, awareness. You're not just learning to cook or clean, I said. You're learning to value what's been done for you, to respect the sacrifices of others, to grow into adults who contribute rather than consume. Terrence's voice shook. I never realized how much you sacrificed. Every penny, every hour, every little thing, all for me. I nodded quietly, my heart heavy. You needed to see it yourself. I couldn't make you understand by telling you. You had to experience the absence of convenience to truly grasp it. Now, look at me, Terrence. You too, Tiffany. You wood of ice, says the unexpected arrival of the neighbors, but the strain of the night and day make their defense feeble. Sometimes life forces accountability in front of an audience, and there's no hiding behind excuses. Just as Terrence and Tiffany started feeling the weight of their new responsibilities, a knock echoed through the house. I glanced at the clock. It was barely 10 a.m. Tiffany's face paled. Who could that be? I smiled faintly. Our neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Lawson. They just stopped by to welcome you properly and to see how things are going. Terrence groaned. Mom, seriously, now? I ignored him. It's a good opportunity for you to demonstrate that you're capable of managing your own lives. The Lawsons entered cheerfully, waving. They had known Terrence since he was a boy. Good morning, Aunt May, they called. Tiffany fumbled with her robe, suddenly conscious of her messy hair and disheveled appearance. Terrence straightened up, but his hands trembled. I gestured toward the kitchen. Show them what you've accomplished this morning. Terrence hesitated, then slowly began making coffee. Tiffany reluctantly washed the last of the dishes. Each movement was careful, deliberate, and awkward, but it was real. Mr. Lawson raised an eyebrow. Looks like you two are learning quickly. Terrence swallowed, feeling heat rise to his face. Yes, sir. Mom, she's teaching us responsibility. Tiffany nodded silently. The humiliation was sharp, but necessary. Mrs. Lawson smiled warmly at me. Aunt May, you've always been a patient woman, but it looks like the lessons are sinking in. Terrence's shoulders slumped. For the first time, he realized that this wasn't just a private confrontation. Everyone around him could see the truth. He and Tiffany had relied entirely on my generosity for far too long. The neighbors chatted, complimenting the breakfast they had prepared themselves. Their awkward smiles, quiet nods, and polite words reminded Terrence and Tiffany that the world doesn't cater to entitlement. By the time the Lawsons left, a weight had shifted. They no longer felt like entitled house guests. They felt the real consequences of their behavior for the first time. The neighbors had witnessed the first real test, but the ultimate challenge awaited later that evening when Terrence and Tiffany would confront the full reality of their eviction and the life lessons that came with it. Sometimes a warning isn't meant to threaten. It's meant to save someone from their own mistakes. By evening, the house was quiet again. Terrence and Tiffany had spent the day completing chores, learning how much effort it truly took to maintain a home. Their movements were slower, more deliberate, and they no longer argued as they had that morning. I called them to the living room. Sit down. We need to talk. Terrence and Tiffany exchanged nervous glances and obeyed, sitting stiffly on the sofa. I want you both to understand something clearly, I began, my voice calm but unwavering. This house is no longer your playground. It's not a place where you can take advantage of love or patience. You have 30 days to move out, and every day you remain here without contributing properly,
is a day you risk losing the respect you still have a chance to regain. Tiffany's lip trembled. Aunt May, Mom, we understand. We will. No, I interrupted gently. Understanding isn't enough. You need action. Every choice, every effort, every step you take from now on must reflect responsibility. You must earn respect, not expect it. Terrence swallowed, his hands gripping the edge of the coffee table. I see that now. I really do. I pulled out a notebook and handed it to him. This is your checklist. Every day, record the chores you complete, the meals you prepare, the money you spend wisely. Keep a journal of your progress. At the end of 30 days, I will review it. If you fail to show maturity, the consequences will be permanent. This isn't punishment, it's preparation for life. Tiffany nodded silently, finally comprehending that her pampered lifestyle was over. She glanced at Terrence, realizing that his excuses no longer mattered. They both had to change. I leaned back, my hands resting on my knees. Remember, you are not losing me. You are gaining understanding. You are not losing comfort. You are gaining life skills. And above all, you are learning that love cannot exist where respect is absent. The room remained silent, heavy with reflection. Terrence finally whispered, "We won't fail you, Mom. I promise." I let them believe that for now. I had planted the seeds of responsibility, and it was up to them to water them.
Sometimes real growth starts quietly, in small, unassuming moments. The following morning, Terrence woke up before the alarm. For the first time, he didn't groan or complain. He walked to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast for both himself and Tiffany. Every motion was careful, deliberate, and intentional. Tiffany, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, watched quietly. When Terrence offered her a cup of coffee, she hesitated, then smiled softly. There was no smirk, no sense of entitlement, just a quiet acknowledgement that things were changing. I observed from the doorway, sipping my tea, letting them learn without interference. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment they began to understand that responsibility cannot be forced, it must be embraced. Terrence looked at the notebook I had given him the night before. He opened it and began writing down the chores he had completed, the meals he had cooked, and the expenses he planned to cover. Tiffany followed suit, listing tasks she would handle throughout the day. "Mom," Terrence said, finally breaking the silence, "I didn't realize how much work you've done for us all these years. I'm sorry for taking it for granted." I smiled faintly, my heart heavy but full. Actions speak louder than words, Terrence. Don't just apologize, show it. Tiffany nodded. I'll try too. I've been selfish. I've treated this house like it's a hotel, and that ends today. For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. Not empty, not silent, but alive with learning, growth, and accountability. The weight of entitlement had been lifted, replaced by a quiet determination to do better. I realized something important. The long years of sacrifice, of unacknowledged labor, and of financial support had not been wasted. They were the foundation for the lessons Terrence and Tiffany were beginning to learn. Terrence turned to Tiffany and whispered, "We have to do better. For Mom, for ourselves." She smiled, a genuine smile this time, and nodded. I felt a sense of quiet victory, tempered with the knowledge that real change would take time. But for now, the first steps had been taken. They thought this was just a confrontation, but it was the beginning of a transformation that would redefine their lives forever.
Sometimes the greatest victories are quiet and deeply personal. By the end of the month, the house had changed completely. Terrence and Tiffany were no longer the entitled couple who expected every meal, every chore, and every penny to be provided. They were learning to contribute, to manage their time, and to face the consequences of their choices. Terrence made his own breakfast without hesitation. Tiffany cleaned the living room without being asked. Bills were divided fairly, meals were planned thoughtfully, and the notebook of expenses became a tool for accountability rather than a punishment. One evening, as I sat in the living room sipping tea, Terrence approached me with a small envelope. He handed it to me, shaking slightly. Inside was a check for $2,000, a partial repayment of the debts he had accumulated over the years. "I know it's not enough, Mom," he said quietly, eyes downcast. "But it's a start. I want to show you I can be responsible." Tiffany stood beside him, holding her own envelope. "And I'll do the same. I've been selfish and blind. I don't want to live that way anymore." I felt tears well in my eyes. For years, I had endured ungratefulness, exploitation, and emotional exhaustion. But in this moment, I realized my patience, my planning, and my courage had made a difference. "Actions matter more than words," I said softly. "You two are learning that now. Keep it up, and you'll never have to rely on me like before." Terrence and Tiffany nodded, a mix of humility and determination on their faces. The house was no longer a battleground. It was a home again. A place where love and respect coexisted, and where lessons learned the hard way paved the path for a brighter future. I looked around, feeling a deep sense of peace. The woman who had once felt taken for granted, humiliated, and invisible had reclaimed her power, not through anger, but through strategic patience, unwavering boundaries, and love that refused to be exploited. And as I sipped my tea, I realized something profound. Sometimes the hardest battles are not fought with fists or words, but with wisdom, courage, and the resolve to never be anyone's doormat again. Terrence and Tiffany had learned their lessons, and for the first time, they truly understood what it meant to respect, honor, and value the woman who had given them everything. And now she was free from being anyone's servant.